the only way that we heal and talk about it, even in the fact that we're successful now or have some success or are aligned around healing our community, is to be able to talk about these things in a way where we can invite other people
To feel
to
comfortable
to
with
feel comfortable with the truth
and
of it.
Kareem Webb, welcome to the huddle, brother.
Thank you for having me. I was starting to feel like one of them stepchildren because I keep watching the huddle, man, and all these brothers talking about it. I said, one day, Lord have mercy, I'm gonna have my game tight enough where I'm gonna get the invite to come on down here, man. So
My thing is,
thank God it's today.
I needed to get good before I invited you because I know that if I wasn't good, you would kill me. So I had to make sure that in the process, I had to practice on them. But by the time I got to you, man, I'm pretty good at this thing already.
One thing I know, man, is Jaime gonna be Jaime, brother. So
Yeah,
thank you, man.
yeah,
You make me
yeah.
feel good. Now I'm ready.
Yeah, man. In starting this interview, I think it's it's a phrase that my father used to use, and it was, you don't know the fruit. If you know the fruit, you know the root. And the thing that it means is that, if your father was a barber, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be a barber. If your mother was a teacher, it's a chance you're going to be a teacher. So whatever your parents are. But before people can understand you as a person, they have to know where you come from and who your parents are. Who are your parents?
Man, that's an amazing question. My parents are Reggie and Renee Webb. They are, we all are, or those of us who are African American, or Black people all around the world, really, the Western Hemisphere at least, the descendants of slaves. So I think it starts there because, as Black people, we all have, in America, we all have, kind of this aligned experience in our DNA that is around trauma. And it's an intense, heavy dose of significant intergenerational trauma. And I don't say that to put that on my parents, but I want to start there when we talk about Black people generally, because everything that we overcome has to start with healing the legacy and the ramifications of the torturous
systems,
the torturous realities and systems that are inherent in racism. But first, we have to deal with the trauma of rape, the trauma of family separation, the trauma of chattel slavery.
The psychological chains of slavery.
Psychological and physical, as well as sociological, as it relates to, preventing us from having equality and being able to be fully self-expressed as children of God, right? And so my father grew up, his great-grandmother raised him. He wasn't raised by his father or his mother. Moved him to Los Angeles from South Bend, Indiana at 11 years old. My dad went to Manual Arts here in LA. My mother was a product of a single mother that moved her to LA at 16 years old. She went to Dorsey. My parents met.
Dorsey Don. I love that.
Shortly, after my dad finished high school, my mom was still at Dorsey, and they've been together ever since. And
how long has that been? How long have they been married?
Man, my parents have been married. We just celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, man, this past
Cheers
spring.
them,
so
my parents did their 50. It's a beautiful monument.
Yeah, it's incredible to have begun, on 54th and Dinker, in a 1-bedroom studio above a garage, to having just, sold their 16 McDonald's units and having created what they created for myself and my siblings, and thousands of other people, especially Black people who they've helped in their businesses and lives, through the years. So I come from a great, strong, spiritually strong, aligned, community connected, passionate group of parents.
Tell me characteristics of each of your parents, the strong characteristics that you have, or something that you could say that made an impression on you at an early age. Like, what are some of the things that your mom instilled in you and your father instilled in you that were their characteristics that it helped you become the man that you are now?
My dad operated within a no excuse environment for himself, his children, or anybody else. He was unapologetically African American. He was a black man and respectful of and insistent on fairness for himself, his family, and black people generally at all times, and high integrity. He believed in keeping himself above reproach. You can't get sweated for something you don't do.
Wow.
Right. And
Wow.
so, and then when you did all the right things, you demand what's due to you. And then he was also very strategic on aligning people around the fact that that's in everybody's interest. So in other words, if you do right by the least of these, doesn't that mean that everybody should be done right by? And so he was always dealing with the facts, the analytics, and being able to work in a corporate structure, leveraging the facts to prove that the right thing is in the interest of everybody. And it was very instructive to, kind of be in the car, listening to those conversations and watching the way he moved and how he thought and the conversations he would be having behind the scenes when he wasn't in the boardroom, but he was having conversations with other franchisees or having conversations with people who might not even be African American and aligning and reverse engineering. My mother was just doggedly committed to keeping the family together and going, right? So my mother was her strength. Well, the first thing you know about my mom is she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when she was 30.
Oh, wow.
Right.
So even before she had you all.
No, my mom had me when she was 24. So
okay.
I was 6. My sister was 2. My brother wasn't born yet. She was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, incapacitated in the hospital for the first 6 months, and then medicated. And today, if you saw my mom, she's with a walker, heavy limp, hard for her to get around. In all these years, man, I've never heard her complain.
Wow.
So it was a woman that was a wife, a mother, a business owner, an accountant, a homemaker, a philanthropist with MS, and never complained.
So would you say that from your father, you got how to be calculating and how to come up with a plan and executing the plan. But then from your mom, you receive tenacity. Like, man, regardless of what it is, whatever you dealt, you got to deal with it and you got to make the best of it. The fact that she never complained. Are those the two things that you would say that you took from them? Or what's one thing you would say you took from your dad and one thing that you took from your mom? Just one thing that's a part of your personality.
Yeah, I would say for my dad, reverse engineering the outcome. Yeah, from my old man. And from my mother, I would say graceful tenacity.
So deconstructing in order to construct.
You have to, if you want to create something, the creation doesn't happen in a vacuum. You build to what it is that you create. And if you can envision all of the steps that will get you there, or generally an outline of the steps, because you're always going to have adversity. You're going to have to be able to
how do you deal
move,
with it? Yeah.
But you got to have some clarity and an idea of how you get from A to Z. And my dad would always know he was getting to Z, but he'd be thinking about and aligning all the way around A, B. And when he was at B, he's thinking about E and F, even though he's executing against B and C and all the way there in order to get there. But he was thinking about all these steps. As soon as he decided, I want to get to Z, he's thinking about all of these things. And I do the same thing. Yeah.
So you think about your worst case scenarios before you even start.
It's not about, I don't think about it from a negative. I just think about, in order to get it done, what has to happen? Who do I need? What are the things that need to happen? How can I do it creatively? What resources do I have, or tools do I have, or relationships do I have that can help me get there? What do I need them to believe about the scenario?
Scripture in the Bible says, before a builder sets out to build, he first sits down and he counts out the cost. And he wants to think about how much is this going to require, and then that helps him decide whether or not it's something that he's first capable of doing, and second of all, whether he chooses to do it. So I get it. I think that that's dope.
This episode is brought to you by Harold and Bill's LA's legendary Creole Kitchen, serving up soulful flavors since 1969. Whether you're craving classic jambalaya, crispy catfish, or a warm bowl of gumbo, Harold and Bells delivers Southern hospitality with every bite. Dine in, take out, or let us cater your next celebration. Stop by and experience a true taste of New Orleans, only at Harold and Bells.
Tell me this, as a child, we've talked about the parents, but as a child, who were you as a child? I know, and it's funny, in one of my favorite Snoop Dogg songs, and I think it was on the Doggy Style album, he says, little boy, what do you want to be when you grow up? And one of the kids said, I want to be a doctor. He's like, little girl, what do you want to be when you grow up? She's like, I want to be a lawyer. And he said, little boy in the back, what do you want to be? And Snoop said, I want to be a motherfucking hustler. And when he said that, it was like, wow. As a child, when did you decide that you wanted to be a hustler?
Hilarious.
At what point was it the light bulb came on and you was like, man, I can do this, and this is who I am?
You know what's funny, man, is that my dad, he always told me when I was 11 when he bought his first 2 McDonald's, but before that, he was a corporate executive at McDonald's. So I was working at McDonald's on Figueroa during the '84 Olympics.
What's so funny is I read somewhere yesterday, and it said that by the time you were 27, you had been working in McDonald's for 15 years or something like that. Like
longer, yeah.
17 years or something crazy.
18 years, yeah. I started at 9 years old, yeah.
I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, we went to Morehouse. I was in polyester McDonald's uniforms at Du Bois Hall, walking up to Abernathy and working at McDonald's.
Oh, you were working at the one while we were in school?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. I did all of that. So, yeah, man.
As a child, when did the light bulb come on? When was it that Kareem was like, you actually, because, when you were a kid, we all want to be a basketball player. I mean, you're a tall dude. You're probably like, man, I got game, I have this, and you're chasing different dreams. When was it when you were like, no, this isn't who I am. This is who I am?
Man, I think, credit to my father, man. He always told me, man, McDonald's is the best he could do. It wasn't the best I could do from a young age. So I knew that I was a leader and I wanted to be a leader. But I was never like, yeah, and I'm going to grow up and own McDonald's, or I'm going to grow up and do this. Like, I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. I wanted freedom. I knew as soon as I started having jobs, like, I didn't like having a boss. I didn't like doing the same thing every day. I didn't like the time that it took to get promoted and to go up, and then to get promoted and go up, and you barely get a little bit more money. I didn't like that. And so, I had seen it, knew that entrepreneurship was possible for myself. And so I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do my own thing, create my own thing. And that turned into a lot of things, in adolescence. I wanted to be Diddy. I had record labels and clothing lines and all kind of,
But you got to try those
I had the black man trifecta.
And I don't know if it was for you, but like for me, my mom was in education, and I didn't want to be in education because I saw what she went through in education, and it was a turnoff for me.
Even though you did it.
I did it. but I had to get there to do it. But initially, at first sight, I don't want to do this. My grandfather was a bishop, and my parents were ordained ministers, and I didn't want to have no parts of ministry because I saw the sacrifices that they had to make in order to do it, and it was like, that ain't my thing. Them people don't care. Like, I don't want no parts of it. But it's just funny how life comes back full circle to where the things that initially you think that you can't do, when you turn around, you're like, man, I'm becoming who they are. I'm becoming this. So like you said, you did a clothing line, you did a rap label, you did this, you did that, only to come up to where you are.
Yeah.
So when you were in elementary school, you were a certain way. When did you start getting your swag? Because Kareem got swag. When did the swag develop to where you got that cool factor where you knew people rock with you?
In my mid-30s.
It wasn't until your 30s?
Yeah.
So in high school, you weren't cool?
I mean, in high school, man, listen, man,
And what kind of high school did you go to? Like, I went to Dorsey High School.
Yeah,
what kind of high school did you go to?
I went to Bishop Amant, La Puente. I went to Catholic school.
So you were the minority in school. The whole time you were in school.
It was a lot of Latinos and African Americans. And
there was a lot of African Americans.
Not a lot, but we were all, the boys were all athletes. So it was a football school. we had, we had a good time in school. We were popular kids generally in school, but I wasn't by any means the most popular of them. Oh, listen, I had low self-esteem. So I had successful parents, but when you
How was
have,
your self-esteem low with successful parents?
oh, I was molested as a young person. Not by like a family member, but by somebody young, somebody in the neighborhood. I was molested by a babysitter, a female babysitter at 5 years old. I'd really,
And you remember that?
it's really something I've only come to terms with over the last couple of years in terms of like, I had 3 kids by 24 by 3 different women, man. Like I didn't have respect for my own value and self-worth, and I was loosey goosey and reckless with my sexuality around that kind of stuff. And I carried a lot of shame around that for a long time. And
because you had held on to it, it was causing different behaviors.
Yeah, I wasn't even cognizant of it as a young person. You know what I mean? Or even in my early 20s, I was just struggling to try to figure myself out and just had low self-esteem.
How did it come to a head?
Man, thankfully, man, just, by God putting me in situations where I met people that have introduced me to the right kind of coaches and therapists and people that allowed me to, where I felt comfortable enough to be like, yeah, and these things happen. Even though I realized them, I never thought it mattered.
But at 5, do you remember stuff that happened?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And it's beautiful that I think it's powerful when Black men talk about getting psychological help, because in the world we live in, I watched this documentary the other day called King in the Wilderness, one of the most awesome documentaries. And they were saying that towards the end of Martin Luther King's life, he had like a twitch, and they didn't know where the twitch comes from. And when he talked to somebody, it was like he's depressed and he needs to seek psychological help. He needs to see a therapist. And Sidney Poitier. No, not Sidney Poitier. What's the other one? Harry Belafonte. Harry Belafonte said that if Martin Luther King would have went to go see a therapist, it would have been on the front page of the news that the leader of the Black people is crazy and he's lost his mind and he's cuckoo, so he couldn't do it. But the irony is, they said at the end towards the end of his life, the twitch went away, and they asked him. They said, Harry Belafonte was like, the twitch is gone. What happened? What did you do? And he said, I came to terms with the fact that I'm going to die. And once I accepted death, now I'm able to live. And I was like, wow. So it's just amazing with you that you're strong enough to even tell people that, because I know a lot of people that have been molested or abused, and they don't talk about it because it's a certain shame that comes along with that when you weren't responsible for it. You had nothing to do with it, so you don't own the shame, but you still feel bad about it. So I commend you for that, because a lot of brothers don't talk about it.
There's that, and I think too, like, we think that because we see successful Black people, or because we see successful human beings, or people who are, that everybody is whole. When you, like, my dad didn't have a dad. He didn't have a mom. He's raised by his grandmother. His grandmother was a domestic. He was a latchkey kid.
And it was just him. He didn't have no siblings.
No siblings around, going to Greater Ebenezer. So, like, he had me at 26 years old. That man, all he knew how to do was to bust his ass in corporate America, climb the ladder, get some corporate stock, create, leverage that to buy 2 McDonald's, and then go out and all he knew how to do was to hold people accountable in order to not necessarily dive into like an emotional love, like nurture young people in the way that they need to feel loved and worthy. And so, like, as a 47-year-old man, I could see that and appreciate that, and not harbor any ill feeling to it, but just say the legacy of slavery and unfairness and the robbing of our ability to create intergenerational wealth, that even when we get to the point to where we have it, we still probably don't have the skill set to be in a place where we nurture our kids in a way where they could have high self-esteem and the right kind of behaviors and protect them from certain sorts of things and all of that kind of stuff. And all of that has repercussions. And that's the only way that we heal and talk about it, even in the fact that we're successful now or have some success or are aligned around healing our community, is to be able to talk about these things in a way where we can invite other people to feel comfortable with the truth of it so that we can get through it.
We share similar things and we've gone through and we've made it through. And if I can make it through, anybody can make it through. And I think those are the things that we have to hold on to. It's crazy, though. It's crazy when you think about it. I think our parents, the generation that they're from, they did their best to give us the things that they never had, but at what cost? I think the cost of that is some of the things that they had, we didn't get.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was the love and the nurturing, because my great-grandparents, they didn't have much, but they had a whole lot of love.
Right.
But then our parents' generation was the generation where they went out and they busted their ass.
Yeah.
And they were out there trying to get it and build a legacy for their kids.
Yeah.
But it's a price to that. And the price is sometimes things happen because they're busy doing other things.
Well, and listen, when you grow up in the Jim Crow South and before that, slavery.
Yeah, the reason my father came to L.A. was because he was accused of messing with a white woman, and the Ku Klux Klan showed up at my grandmother's house in Grapeland, Texas, and told her, they gonna kill him if you don't get him out of here. So that's how he ended up in L.A. The reason my mother was in L.A. is because my uncle was messing with a white woman, and they said they were gonna kill him. So all the family migrated west, because the West was a whole bunch of new opportunities. But you're right, the scars from that, you don't know what the ramifications of that are, because we don't have anything to compare it to.
You don't have anything to compare it to. And when you think about life as a sharecropper, or you think about the life that your grandparents lived in Texas, right? Or that your parents grew up in Texas. Mm-hmm. And even what we consider to be love, right? The cooking, the food, the whipping, the discipline, the togetherness, it's still void of some skill set and some truth that comes from whole healed people.
But in the world we live in, even the people that were our abusers and our oppressors, were they whole? Because if you could abuse somebody else the way they were abusing us, you can't be whole.
No, but I also think in the history of humanity, as long in the Bible, as long as the world has existed, you've never seen a people with an advantage lay down their advantage and just give it up. Like there's something about human beings that we're tribal. I mean, like there's a level of evilness. That is kind of unprecedented. But today, nowhere in the world that you go, anywhere in the world where there are brown-skinned people or darker-skinned people, is it not the fact that the lightest-skinned people in that land have the most wealth and access to power, from Costa Rica to Brazil to Mexico to the United States
to Dominican,
to Canada, to the DR, to like no matter where you go, Europe, India, Asia.
Yeah, you're right. It's crazy. I love that. We both share something, and we share a thing that it changed my life in the fact that when I got ready to go to college, I went to Atlanta, and opposed to me, my grades weren't that great to where when I got ready to go, but I was ready to go. So I ended up at Morris Brown, and Morris Brown was a school in Atlanta, a part of the AUC. And at Morris Brown, as long as you were black, you came in on academic probation, but you had an opportunity to go to a black college. So they accepted me in there, and I went to the AUC, and I was taking classes at Morehouse. My decision to go to Morehouse was because my decision to go to Atlanta to a black college is because I went on a black college tour, and the tour changed my life. How did you end up what was the journey that led you to Morehouse?
So I played basketball like you talked about in high school, and I was a low D1 player, meaning that I was like not good enough to go to UCLA, Pac-12 school, probably maybe Washington State.
Low D1 was still good though.
Right. So like I was like, okay, I'd go to St. Mary's, Pacific, Pepperdine, and play, and that's what I wanted to do. And my dad was like, yeah, well, Pepperdine is pretty much a continuation of Bishop Amat. You need to go see some new things. So he took me to Morehouse.
So he just flew you. You didn't go on a tour. He just flew you to Atlanta.
He took me to Morehouse that fall before it's like application time.
Now, where did he go to college?
He didn't. Or Cal State LA for a little while.
That's where all the black people went in LA.
Yeah. My mom.
My mom went there too. Yeah.
So, and I got there. We went to a basketball game. It was, it was disappointing because wasn't nobody paying attention to the game. It was like
it was more about the scene.
Yeah, it was no juice. It was like if you was in a fraternity or the band,
you had
got
more
some
action
juice
than you had as a basketball player.
It wasn't the player. It was
You're right.
not, the popularity thing.
You're right.
So I was like, well, there ain't no reason to go to all this practice and do all this.
But it was one dude when we were there that was my
boy Larry Lewis.
Yeah. He was the truth.
Larry is he's assistant coach at UC Santa Barbara.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one dude that was there, and he got NBA looks and everything to where he was nice.
There was another brother that was there too that played for the Clippers.
Something Ellis.
He was an LA cat too. I
think. Ellis.
Introducing Tequila Gran Diamante, an ultra-premium luxury tequila crafted from 100% blue agave grown in the rich red volcanic soil of Los Altos de Jalisco. At their award-winning distillery, each batch undergoes open vat fermentation, inspired by the motto, nothing but the best. Every sip offers refined flavor and exceptional quality. Experience fine tequila elevated, Tequila Gran Diamante. Please enjoy responsibly for those 21 and over.
But anyway, yeah, so, and my dad was like, yeah, you will apply here.
Did the trip hook you, though? Because it sounded like it was cool, but you weren't impressed. It didn't sound like you went. Because when I went, I just saw, the thing that got me was when I went is I had never seen so many brothers in one place, and they had suits and shirts on, and the brothers were respectful, and there was a whole bunch of sisters there, and it was just like, it was an environment to where I felt like, man, I can't not go here. Because I had been to Cal State LA, I've been to Trey Tech, I've been to the local spots, and the local spots were kind of just like, it wasn't nothing. But when I got to Morehouse or Morris Brown, I felt at home. So you weren't sold from your trip, it don't sound like.
I wasn't there with friends. I was there with my dad. I was hanging out with another McDonald's franchisee who lived in Atlanta who became like an uncle to me. And so, no. And I was thinking about life in Malibu. I was going to go to Pepperdine.
Because at this point, how many franchises does your dad have?
He might have had 3 or 4 at the time, 3, something like that. Yeah. So, yeah. And so, but, make a long story short, I got into school. I went to summer school. I made friends, and then I went back to school.
So you went back to Morehouse and you started your semester there?
Yeah, I was a freshman with everybody else, freshman week and all that.
How was your experience at Morehouse?
The experience changed my life because you're around so many black people. I wasn't serious about school. So I never was passionate about academics. I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. And my worst case scenario was like, I'm going to go run McDonald's. And I knew that even in working at McDonald's while I was in school or that I was really, really good at it. It came very easy to me. I could run the shit out of a store because I grew up doing it, knew how to do it, knew how to think like my dad.
But by you being the son of the owner, were you the dude that nobody wanted to work with at the place because they'd be like, man, were you the type of employee because you're working with your dad? Did you do everything? Or were you a person that you felt like you weren't going to do something?
No, I did everything and I did it better. And it was easy to me. Mm-hmm. And I enjoyed doing it. And it was a way to get approval from my dad. And that was always important to me. And, it was in Pomona. So, one store was in the jungles, another store was in the islands. And so, you'd be on the grill or on fries or in the drive-thru hanging out, and the same girls that be in the drive-thru ones I wanted to date. And, you'd be playing ball with those cats. So it was fun for me.
Was your cap you know, baby, come to McDonald's, you know, and I'll get you a Happy Meal because my daddy owns the place. Was that your cap in school where girls came through because they knew your dad owned it, so they were trying to get free food, or you weren't having that?
Man, I don't know.
Because I
but
might have used that. I might have
might-
used that.
I'm gonna plead the fifth on my tactics way back when.
My back would have been so cold. We having a party at McDonald's. Shakes on me. But what are some of the relationships that you formed at Morehouse? Or tell me one particular thing at Morehouse that you remember that was a pivotal moment in your life. Like I remember when I was there, it was a dude named Steve Coakley. And Coakley was like this dude that would come speak, and they would ban him to speak all over the world. And he would come to Morehouse, and he would just put game into our heads. So we would sit in the chapel, and he would just tell us stuff to where it would just open up our mind. And then us being from, well, me being from LA, I had never heard people talk like that. Because in LA, I really hadn't been around the militants. My parents were Christians. My parents were, you know, the Lord will provide. You know, we're going to make a way. Kind of Martin Luther King philosophy, you know, turn the other cheek. Whereas when I got to Morehouse and I saw Steve Coakley, and he was just like, man, you don't have to take this, and you empower yourself. And he started preaching that. It was one of those moments that I had. Did you have a moment at Morehouse to where it was like, oh, shit, this is real? Or because you weren't there with that
it was
intention,
the
you missed
ancillary
that?
stuff, man. Going to mosque number 15, getting like experience, like going from, you know, Catholic school in La Puente, growing up in Rowland Heights, West Covina, Diamond Bar, to all of a sudden, you know, you in Atlanta, you on MLK, you in mosque number 15, you getting exposed to Farrakhan, you know, the 5%ers on campus.
Minister Tony went to Morris Brown.
Minister Tony was there at the time,
Yeah.
and the biggest game changer was just the number of Black people. You know, like I think, you know, growing up in the San Gabriel Valley, it was just a different thing. It was so diverse, and there you were on this enclave of Blackness. Your professors are African American and outstanding. You got the students that are super serious and they're about it. You got the cats that are smoking fat blunts. You walk up to the West End. You walking through the projects in order to get up there. You dealing with the entire diaspora of Blackness in America in that space. And
the thing that got me was you got so many brothers from so many different places in the country. So you had the dudes that were in D.C. that they had their kind of swag about them to where they moved a certain way. But then you had the dudes that were from New York. And New York, you think New York and D.C. are close, but they had two different swags. But then you had the dudes from Miami that was, you know, they were just, you know, Luther's Campbell, like Two Live Crew.
Miami, New Orleans.
Everybody had their different
Chicago
swag. And then
brothers.
us dudes from California, we were a little different because our swag was different because of our environment. We had more similarities than differences, but the differences sort of established an identity. And
there's cliques.
Yeah, and then like, you know, I take pride in the fact that the California club at Morehouse and Morris Brown and AUC were the people that came up with Freaknik. And Freaknik was another thing that sort of changed my life.
You gonna take pride in that?
I took pride in it because we were able to come together and create something that's a college, something historical on college, and it'll always be remembered that it was something that was done. It will never be duplicated, but it was done.
Yeah.
And it was a good, you think back in that life, you had no cares. You had no worries. Your thing was you want to make sure you're passing so your parents ain't tripping. But on the other side, you want to make sure that you're enjoying it. Because you know after this, life starts. And you're going to have to deal with it. In that, so when Morehouse was over and you came back home, that was the thing for me. I had dissonance when I came back home on what direction I was going to go and how life was going to go. When you got back home from Morehouse, was it already established that you were going into the franchise?
Oh, I didn't go home immediately because I got married. So I got married at 23.
You got married while you were in school?
Right after. So I got married at 23 years old. We moved to D.C. She wanted to apply for, it's my daughter's mother. She wanted to apply to go to law school there. So we lived there for a year and change. She didn't, unfortunately, get into any of those law schools. And then we had my daughter. So I was like, this makes no sense. I was working at McDonald's in Silver Spring, Maryland. making, I don't know, not a lot of money as a general manager, supervisor. And my parents were growing their business. They went from like having maybe 3 stores to buying 3 or 4 more, and really could use my skill set. And it was like I could go now become an approved franchisee. So going from making little to no money in this 1-bedroom apartment in, Lanham, Maryland, or wherever we live, to, moving out to Fontana, Rancho Cucamonga, buying a house, going through the process, supervising stores for my parents, and all of that kind of stuff is what we ended up doing. So when I came home, man, I was, had a family. I was 24 years old.
How long did that relationship work while you were when you came back? Did y'all stay together for a while?
It was a 3-year marriage, man, and then 26, divorced. And that's when I left McDonald's, moved to LA, got involved in the real estate business, which ultimately led me to Buffalo Wild Wings and kind of
the
rest
real
is
estate
history.
market was that during the time the market crashed, or this was before the crash?
This was before 2008. So this is probably like maybe 2004 is when I started in that business. Maybe even before that. So I might have had like a 5-year run.
But the thing is, the one thing that you always had was you were working the whole time in the franchise. So you sort of had, you knew the ins and outs on how franchises operate and how they function and what it takes to run a franchise. So tell me this, when you got ready to start your new situation, it's so funny. Before I met you, it was, we ran into each other in Atlanta, but we didn't know each other. But when we got the relationship, before I had heard about you and I had heard about the restaurants that you were opening. But first, did you open the restaurant Le Pure before the Buffalo Wild Wings or during the same time?
Yeah, Rapport in Rancho Cucamonga was well after Buffalo Wild Wings.
Oh, was after Buffalo Wild Wings. So when Buffalo Wild Wings, when you got ready to open the franchise, how did that come about?
Ed was working at ML Stern, which is a asset management firm, and was transitioning from an administrative role into managing his own assets and clients. And there was a guy, Kareem Rush, was playing for the Lakers and was a real estate client. So I introduced Ed to him. Now,
when Ed was at UCLA, did he play with Kareem's brother?
No. Ed's a lot older.
No, Kareem's brother is older than Kareem's brother. He has an older brother that played at UCLA that had a problem with drinking, and they said he was the best Rush out of all of them. You got Brandon Rush that's younger, and then you got Kareem. Then there was an older one that's 40.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But
and you knew Kareem from?
I got introduced to Kareem from somebody else in the real estate business, right? And so, make a long story short, I introduced him to Ed, and Ed was that was Ed's first athlete client.
Oh wow!
And then a friend of mine was doing some consulting for, it was a guy that was a running back for the Seahawks, Alexander.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he had got approached to do a Buffalo Wild Wings deal. And so my boy, who was doing some consulting for him, was like, yo, you know anything about Buffalo Wild Wings? Because he knew my McDonald's background. And I had swore never to get back in the restaurant game.
Now, was this little dude? Because he told me he was the owner for a minute. It was a little dude that used to run with Jamie Foxx. And he was like, yeah, I'm an owner of the Buffalo Wild Wings in Torrance. And,
I don't know who that is.
And he was an owner. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it was another dude that they said he brought the deal to you guys.
No, nobody brought us the deal.
Okay.
So, so anyway, I got asked to go to Vegas. There was no Buffalo Wild Wings in LA. And we were in the middle of the three-peat with Kobe and Shaq. And if you remember at the time, there really wasn't no sports bars here.
No.
So we were going to nightclubs and piecing up on tables to go watch games.
Really?
Yeah. So we would be going to the gate. There's a nightclub on Ventura Boulevard where you'd be going to the nightclub where they had these big screen TVs, and you'd be at like bottle service, piecing up on tables to go watch Kobe and Shaq.
And there wasn't no sports bar.
Right? You could go to Paco's Tacos at the bar, or at the airport, one of the hotels or something like that.
Oh, yeah, Champions. It was a bar at Champions. It was a sports bar called Champions at the Marriott on Century.
And then there was the spot in Hollywood that was small and hard to get into.
Yeah. And you had what was the other spot? The Townhouse.
Q's,
Yeah,
you know, in Brentwood, but not a lot. And so I went to Vegas to check out Buffalo Wild Wings, walked in the kitchen and was like, oh, this ain't like rocket science chef-driven food. This is my McDonald's experience applies here. I could run this. And there's liquor. One of the things that wasn't exciting about McDonald's is like my friends would never come hang. And now I'm, you know, in my late 20s. Nobody coming to hang out with you at McDonald's.
They might come pick up some food, but they're not hanging out.
But even today, I get phone calls from my friends like, yo, are you going to the game? Raider guys, right? Are you going to the game, or which store are you going to be at watching the game or hanging out or this stuff? So if you're going to work all that time, it's nice to be in a place that you would hang out anyway.
And then your friends are coming to hang out, so it makes work a little easier. That's
exactly right. So I told Ed, I called Ed while I was in Vegas. I was like, man, we've been looking for something to do. We ought to do this. And then I think we talked to Kareem about it. He was in, and you know.
Oh, so originally Kareem was one of the partners.
Originally, he was one of the partners. Then he ended up, getting bought out, and and so that's how we started. You know, this journey in Buffalo Wild Wings. Started in Torrance, then opened one in Crenshaw, and then that's where like really life changed for me. Is when I taught that class at Dorsey High School, and I was walking out of the entrepreneur school one day, and I was like,
Miss Estes, she was doing that program.
Carla Estes. And I was like, man, I don't sell chicken and beer. I develop young people. And it just changed my whole perspective around how I wanted to spend my life. And it also made it so I wasn't like, okay, how many Buffalo Wild Wings can I open? It was like,
how many lives can I change?
How many lives can I change?
But it never was about, because when you start opening Buffalo Wild Wings, you open the first one in Torrance. Torrance demographics, for the most part, is white middle class, for the most part, right? So then what made you feel led to come in the Crenshaw district? Out of all places that you could have opened one, what led you to the Crenshaw district?
No BS, man. It was like you buy a territory or you do a deal, Buffalo Wild Wings. Okay, we had a 2-store deal. Me and Ed still like, you know, young black guys in early 30s. We went through 21 letters of intent before we got a deal done. And
before you got one Buffalo Wild Wing.
And the only reason we got the deal done in Torrance is because at the time Kareem Rush was playing for the Indiana Pacers, and the owner of the Pacers owned the mall.
Oh,
Mr.
wow.
Simon owned Simon Malls.
Oh, wow.
That's how we got the deal. We had where Rush Street is in Culver City, where Acacia is in Culver City. We had LOIs on all of those and 19 other places all around town. And as soon as they would see me and Ed walk up, we had a Jewish broker. The broker would do the deals. But the other side, man, as soon as we would walk in and get ready to go do the lease, they want to meet you, the deals would somehow fall apart. So, yeah, it was like racism, straight racism in Los Angeles. And so we were able to do the deal at Simon Mall, and then Ken Lombard was associated with the Crenshaw Mall.
Yeah.
And so it was a black man who saw 2 black guys who got that.
Tell me, even though it was a corporation and you're with a franchise.
Yeah.
And you're taking a franchise to a location which is going to make a profit. You mean to tell me that people, because they saw 2 young black guys that were going to open this franchise, you mean to tell me they denied you guys?
Yeah.
Why didn't you just get a white face and do an experiment and do a white face and put a white face in there and set them in there and see how it works?
I don't know that. Well, no, we weren't naive. We knew what was going on. We were just desperate, and you had a time frame. So Buffalo Wild Wings was charging us extension fees. They were charging us penalties because you pay franchise fee, and they give you a certain amount of time to get open. And if you're not open in that time frame, you got to pay. And so, you know, we knew there was some risk in terms of going into Crenshaw because I'd had experience in opening stores in the quote unquote inner city or harder places to operate through in my McDonald's experience. But we had to look at the risk and reward, and we opened the store.
Was it tough opening in Crenshaw though? Because
no, it was great.
It's different demographics.
No, Crenshaw was fun. It was great. The sales were through the roof. It was doing well until the train.
But before you moved in, what kind of because you just can't come to South Central Los Angeles and establish a business, what kind of prep work did you go? Did you go to different neighborhoods in the immediate area of the mall,
we had
of the
to,
store to
because
go and talk and to see like, man, I'm about to open this restaurant, just not to get approval, but just introduction. Did you have to do stuff like that? Okay, yeah, because I know my neighborhood, and I was born and raised in this neighborhood, and outsiders aren't really welcome. People want to know that you connected to somebody, but the fact that your father went to Manual Arts, and it don't get no more hood than Manual. he paid his dues.
Well, there's a senior center across the street. You had to get a liquor license, so you had to post, and people were protesting.
Wow, they didn't want liquor served over there?
People had negative experiences with Magic's Fridays in Ladera. So there had been shootings up there. A lot of cats coming in there with 26-inch rims and 415s in the trunk. And those elderly people
Didn't
and
want
folks
to deal with
generally in that neighborhood didn't really want that element over there.
How did you stop that?
I just think from having Gerald, like great security from the very beginning.
Who's Gerald?
Big G. Who has, he had connections with all the sets and all the hoods, and people just respected us. They just decided it was going to be neutral. It wasn't going to be about the 40s or the 30s or, anything on Crenshaw. It wasn't going to be about the jungles. This was just going to be a place that was going to be neutral, and everybody's going to be respectful and be cool so we could have a good business here.
With the Crenshaw district, with the Baldwin Hills, I think it was dope that when you came into the community, you immediately established a relationship with Dorsey High School, which is a historic school inside that community. And it will change your life because there's a lot of brilliant minds there. And I remember one time we were having a conversation, and in the conversation, we were talking about most kids want to be basketball players. They want to be football players, but it's a better opportunity for them to be an entrepreneur than it is for them to be an athlete. And a lot of kids don't see it. So I think the blessing is kids seeing you in the community lets them know that, they could do the same thing. And since you were at Buffalo Wild Wings, I commend you because it's several people that I know that have worked for your Buffalo Wild Wings that now are very successful in their own individual restaurants and markets. The dudes that own Billionaire Burgers, man, they got the framework and they got the game from you, and now they were on a TV show a couple weeks ago where they were talking about their restaurants and franchises and stuff like that, and it just made my heart happy to see that we never know how we can influence people, but when we see people doing things that I think it was Jesse Jackson. He said, "Man, I'm sitting under the shade from the seeds that I planted," and I was like, "That's fly." So I just commend you for being able to do that and being this in the community, because whenever people find out that it's three black men that own these Buffalo Wild Wings, and you could have did one and stopped, or you could have done two and stopped, but the fact that now you have three and you're doing it.
4.
Oh, it's 4 now. Mm-hmm. Where's the 4th one?
We in Carson, Torrance.
I forgot about Carson.
Yeah.
I forgot about Carson and Koreatown.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And you could have just went to McDonald's, but instead you did that. So once you did this, how did the airport situation come about?
So the Dorsey thing led to, I told you kind of about the epiphany about I don't sell chicken and beer. I develop young people. And then from there, I became the board chair at LA Southwest College.
I remember that.
And I got invited to get involved in this initiative called Bloom, Building Lives for Opportunities for Young Men. And
with Sharice?
Yeah, Sharice and California Community Foundation. And then I got invited to be on the board of the California Community Foundation, which is has a $2 billion endowment. And you're able to really see with some of the other very successful people that, very multicultural, very diverse board of very, very successful people, and to be aligned and see what was going on there. And, you also as a business person start to get very civically engaged. And so, especially around like our black politicians at the state, federal, and city level, you begin to start to support them financially, fundraisers, and people would also see your face. So if there was something going on around black people especially black youth or black business in and around Los Angeles, policy, politics, I'd end up being there.
So do you think that, like, a lot of black people don't see the significance of supporting or endorsing different political candidates because they say, well, what's the how does it benefit me? So what made you conscious of the fact that you had to establish relationships with politicians in order to get your agenda going?
Well, a couple things happened. One, Buffalo Wild Wings corporate tried to screw us on Carson. So we went to them.
Screw you how?
We went to them. We had 2 stores. We wanted to get a third one. We only had a 2-store deal. So we're like, all right, let's go ask for this third one. We showed them a site. They said, no, you can't do it. And they took it and did it themselves.
Oh, wow.
And so this is under a different regime that currently runs Buffalo Wild Wings. And so literally, we had a mentor, Barry Thomas, that you know.
Barry, OG.
And Barry helped us coordinate meetings with Maxine Waters and Isadore Hall at the time, and Janice Hahn, and the mayor of Carson, and Mike Gibson, and all these black politicians and some non-black politicians who would care that there were successful, competent African-American business people that had an opportunity to own that restaurant. And they put so much political pressure on Buffalo Wild Wings that Buffalo Wild Wings is the only store they've ever sold. They sold the store to us at cost. So
because they didn't want the backlash.
We saw the value of the engagement. And
what made these people support you though?
Some of them had heard of us, some of them hadn't. But at the end of the day, you either support equity and fairness and more African Americans getting more money and resources, because when you get the money and the resources, then you can show up and be on boards. You can show up and give to the Brotherhood Crusade. You can show up and teach a class at Dorsey. You can do all of those kinds of things and expose kids and hire people. Right? It's one thing, like if you know me, you can call me and say, my cousin, my nephew, my kid,
I've done it before.
My kid at church, my this, my that, they need a job because I'm in and of the community and we'll do that, and it matters.
Man, you like Morris Brown. You give anybody an opportunity, and it's up to them whether they could take advantage of that opportunity.
That's
right.
Dope. And so, so then I knew that, and then through that I was at the Congressional Black Caucus, 2 years ago now, and the mayor Garcetti called me and said, "Hey, I got a question for you. I got this airport commission opening, and I want to nominate you to be on the airport commission. Would you do it?" Like, Mr. Mayor, I'll always serve at the pleasure of the mayor on behalf of the citizens of Los Angeles.
This isn't an elected position; it's
appointed.
So, how long does the appointment last?
You serve at the pleasure of the mayor. So the mayor's term is up next year. Karen Bass is running to replace him. We're very supportive of Karen Bass, and so we'll see.
How's what's your responsibility at the airport?
Well, over the course of 10 years, we're probably spending about $20 billion at the airport. So there's 7 of us on the board. So we have oversight over everything from security to what decisions are made around, all of the redevelopment at the airport and who gets the contracts, everything.
Yeah.
And so, like I told the mayor when he called me, your job is to be informed about all of it because you have to vote on all of it. But all of us as commissioners have areas of specificity. So for me, it's about equity and fairness. $20 billion getting spent. In non-COVID, there's about $1 billion that comes into the airport every year, right? Into concessions, rental car, like from travelers. It's not the money that the city is spending or that the airport is spending.
That's the money coming in.
That's the money coming in or being spent by passengers at the airport. And so my thing is, all right, well, black people are 10% of the population. Are we getting 10% of the money? No, we get less than 1, right? Latinos are XYZ% of the population? Are they getting, is it representative?
Is it representation?
Right? Is it fair? I believe in this term called parity. which is like, no, make it equivalent to the percentage of the population. If we spread the wealth and the opportunity proportionately, then people will be able to exist in society proportionately. You can't just be a consumer, right? And so I'm keenly aware of that, and I'm always pushing the agenda around, okay, what information? Reverse engineering. You got to start with a disparity study. Let's get clear about the numbers. Let's see how bad it really is. Then once you see how bad it is, then we can say, okay, well, you have federal policy. They call it ACDBE programs, or airport concessions, disadvantaged business enterprise programming. And then you could say, yeah, we have that in place, but it still didn't help us get past 1%. So you got to use that, and we got to create other policy at the city level in order to help other small businesses and bigger businesses get a bigger piece of the pie and make that part of the policy.
Are you the only black guy on the commission? Black
Yes.
man on the commission?
African American person.
How do people perceive you on the commission? Do they accept you and embrace you?
You know, I really like all of my fellow commissioners. They're all really cool. You know, we've never had a vote where we weren't unanimous in the vote. By the time it gets to us to vote, we're pretty much, you know, things don't typically make it up there unless.
The airport is going through a lot of changes, man.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. I was just at the airport and all the parking lots were closed because of the construction. So when you're running late for a flight and you think you're just going to park at the airport and jump on your flight, then you got to go park at one of the lots around the corner. It's like, wow. But it's amazing. I'm excited to see the changes that the airport is going to do. So the airport is one of your mini hats. But then I know of recently you decided to embark on this cannabis space. And in this cannabis space, you came up with a social equity program called it's the Fourth Movement. And how did that come about?
Again,
what was your reasoning for even doing it? Because cannabis spaces, when you got into it, it was before a lot of people got into it, and it's sort of a new territory, and it has some negative connotations, but it has some positive connotations. How did you feel comfortable attaching yourself?
I didn't feel comfortable. I still don't really feel comfortable. But I do see that the set aside licenses that cities and states or jurisdictions are setting aside opportunities to do business for people who come from communities that have been disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs. That's restorative. It's a way to create a possibility for some reparations, repairing harm. And because of my franchise background, you know, my thing was, all right, how can we raise enough money to help people win, and then raise enough money to create a best-in-class retail experience, best-in-class technology, best-in-class delivery, best-in-class supply chain. Like, how can we go be the best? And then how can we train a lot of people who qualify for these licenses so we can select the people who demonstrate the character and the work ethic and the business acumen to actually execute against the opportunity. And so we've been doing this now 4 years. We just opened the first store, 64 and Hope on 2000 South La Cienega. I hope your millions and millions of viewers will stop by there whenever they're in LA. And those of us who are in LA will come by, and we broke ground. We'll open.
And it's right off the 10 freeway. That's what I like about it.
Yeah.
The one thing with your dad's restaurants where he bought the restaurants that were off the 10 freeway.
Off the freeway, yeah.
So when people were driving, the ones off the freeway are more valuable than the other ones because you get a lot of people that are destination places.
Yeah.
And so is it the same way for this? Was it strategic, you finding a place off the freeway?
You know, I mean, like our next one is on Melrose, right? The next one is on Sepulveda Pico after that. Then you're on on Wilshire between Bundy and Barrington. We're on, Fairfax and Sunset. We're on Sunset. Sunset in Echo Park down from Dodger Stadium. We're, in the Arts District. We're all over the place, not just by the freeways, but we're in great areas of North Hollywood, Encino on Ventura Boulevard. We're at great locations, and we got 21 of them. We'll have the largest footprint of singularly branded retail in California, all awesome. Run by African-American men and women from South LA.
That's awesome. I remember being a part of the team that you established to sort of do the interviews with the individuals that were attempting for license, and the process was just so awesome because you saw how this was an opportunity for people's lives to be changed almost overnight. A lot of the people there were, they had done different things and they hadn't reached the place that they wanted to. And then when they got this opportunity, I remember when you had the place where you named the people that had won their location, and you saw people crying, and you saw people, I think it was just beautiful. And I think it goes back to what you said when you were talking about how historically us as African Americans, we have trauma and we have a lot of things that we've gone through. And I think things like this help repair the trauma, because my mother and father might not have ever seen it. But the fact that you're allowing people to see that that they're valued, first of all, that they have a worth. Because a lot of these people didn't think that they had a self-worth. But now they have a worth, and not only do they have a worth, but now they could go help other people become empowered.
Our people were exposed to Christianity because of slavery, and would be on church on Sunday, which is the only day they didn't have to work the field.
And service was longer because the longer you stayed in church, the less time you had to work.
and we're able to come out of that, but we have a legacy of not having much and still having to somehow, some way fight to have a relationship with God, despite all the reasons why we had not to even believe that God must love us. And then now, you fast forward to today, you have so many people who look like us, who are born into situations through no fault of their own. When they get on Instagram, they see everybody seemingly bubbling. And their life, they're locked out from that life. They're undereducated, under-resourced, and underloved, right? And don't have any way of feeling locked in or any know-how how to create success for themselves. It feels like God doesn't love them. And when you can put a carrot in front of somebody and say, nope, you ain't got to go to school. Nope, you ain't got to go do. All you got to do is show up and be the best person you've ever been, right? And I'll help you become a millionaire. And here's an opportunity. You actually, Asia, when you go meet Asia, that's at store number 1, is from the jungles. Her mother was a crackhead.
Wow.
Right? Or was I shouldn't say crackhead. I said her mother was addicted to crack.
To drugs, yeah.
Right? And so Asia has been through so much trauma. But to see her now as a owner, behaving as a owner, leading a group of people to create a result that's consistent with success and operating in those systems every single day, it's incredible.
But even imagine, just as your father made an impression on you, look at how she's going to make an impression on her family and her children.
And that was the design of what we're doing. It's like, how can we create in this cannabis space at 64 and Hope stores, how can we go create 21 people who are going to do the same thing for their family that my mom and dad did for our family? And then how can we take this model beyond cannabis and go create 1,000 more families around the country?
What does 64th and Hope mean?
So in cannabis in California, Proposition 64 legalized cannabis, and the Hope refers to what we're talking about, social equity and the hope of these owner operators in order to take this opportunity, amass wealth and then go reinvest in our communities and in our families, send our kids to competitive schools, get great health outcomes and create wealth. This is how, in a capitalistic democracy, we're going to change our outcomes.
Because you're doing it and there's so many minorities doing it, did you face opposition from different people in the executing?
Yeah, man. I think, again, hurt people hurt people. And people who are locked out feel frustrated. I don't blame people for feeling like somebody who might be an outsider, seemingly an outsider, or somebody who may seemingly have had some unfair advantages, even if it's in my upbringing and what I've been exposed to, that people would be skeptical and not see that it's not Kareem doing this work, it's God working through Kareem and all of the other people that are working to do this stuff in order to create this. it's not a me thing. You're not hating on Kareem, right? Like you are for some way, I believe, being used as a tool to, I mean, you've heard the thing, sometimes, all PR is good PR.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, even though it might wound my ego and not feel good, the longer I'm in this, the easier it is to let go and let God just keep doing the right thing.
And it's funny hearing you talk about God. I heard someone say not too long ago that your perception of God isn't who He is, it's who you are. And a lot of times people use God in a space to where they justify the things that they want to do using God and religion. And I just think it's beautiful when people use it the way that God intended for it to be used. And it's helping other people, man. I think it's just dope, all the things that you're on and how you got the heart of the people. And in conclusion, what's the next chapter of Mr. Webb's life? Like, you got all these beautiful things going on. Do you retire at 50 and walk off into the sunset? Are you the next mayor of Los Angeles? Like, where do you see yourself at that next stage?
I have enough respect for the Creator
to allow Him to do it.
Because as soon as you say, "Nah, man, I'll never run for office," it was right with God knock on your door. It'd be like, "You about to go do this," But I don't foresee anything like that. I don't have a desire or an appetite for politics. I have an appetite. I feel like God put me on the planet. I was born to my parents for a reason. I've had the experiences I've had for a reason. Even what I'm doing at the California Community Foundation, what I'm doing at the airport, the relationships I'm developing there, I feel like the next level is probably standing up a pretty significant fund, a couple $100 million fund, in order to do social equity, non-cannabis. So it's the other brands that could probably have 100 units, the Mo Better Burgers. There's some other things that I'm interested in growing and installing people into running those things and doing the same thing that we're doing on the cannabis side, but on the non-cannabis side, where you don't have as much regulation, you can move a lot faster. It's easier to put people into these things and go create a tremendous amount of wealth. That's where my passion is now, and figuring out how to do that. But at the same time, we got a mission right in front of us, which is get these 21 stores open.
Get the 21 open, and then we can worry about the next thing after the 21 open. Well, Mr. Webb, I'd like to thank you so much for giving me your time and hanging out at the huddle. My prayer is that God continue to shine His light of love over your life and allow your light to keep influencing other people, man. I just think that it's dope, and I'm glad to call you my brother. Thank you so much, man, for showing up for me.
I mean, let me just say to you, man, and your people, man, I know a lot of people follow you on socials and this, that, and the other. And I'm sure you hear it sometime for some people, but I don't know if you hear it from your brothers that you're closest to or that and that you may respect in some way. But
Definitely.
How you move and your consistent positivity, in the face of any naysayer or any potential, kind of inkling of a thought about anything that's not positive is not only admirable, it's inspirational. So in ways that you're not aware, or I haven't even shared, just even seeing you in my feed and to let your light shine brand and just how you approach everything that you approach is refreshing, and it gives me fuel. So I'm so grateful for how you show up, brother, and love you, man, and respect you. Love how you have persevered through your own personal hurt and pain and, around, the things that we'll all be dealing with around our parents at some point. And the father that you are, the man of God that you are, how many young, especially black men, successful black men who've come into wealth through athletics and other things that you mentor. And I think it's apropos that you would be in the jewelry business, brother, because you're one of our jewels. And so thank you.
And I think God doesn't make any mistakes. And I think the reason that we connected, because we got similar lights. and our lights just shine different, but it's the same light, and that light is God.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's what's beautiful about our relationship. We don't have to talk every day, but I know if I call you like today, I called you and I told you I needed you, you were there, and I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, 100.